ask questions. In 1979, Shagari rode a horse out of power. And Shagari was not in any position to even question them for anything. As a matter of fact, after the 1983 election that was rigged, Shagari was buying Mercedes-Benz to top military officer that they called Shagari style, so that there won't be a coup. So this is the first time that certain questions are being asked. Somebody is being dogged and saying that, yes, that's the convention. The money that they were taking was the money that they always been taking. So I'm entitled to it. So I'm fascinated by the idea that the law is working. And I, as a lawyer, cannot continue to function as an impediment to the working of the law, as it should work in vindication of the principle of equality of all before the law.
Okay.
Because after all, you're a law officer.
Yeah. Mr. Ozekhome, as we begin to wind down,
yes,
some have said this is like the executive interfering into the affairs of the legislature.
Yes.
Is that true?
I'm not fascinated by what you have said. It is just like the same impunity that is going on now. When another government comes, we will also see the impunity that is going on. When you invade a man's house, a man that is not even physically in the country or is not even available, you break into his house, you invade his house, you break in, you cut away things you want. I am going to be educated as to what that means to the rule of law. I am going to be educated. And I am happy that he made a statement that the APC already had their preferred candidate. He made that statement. So that is the issue. And that's why Section 174 is not being properly used by the Attorney General. Because it is not being used in the public interest or the interest of justice or to prevent abuse of court process. Abuse of court process is defined as when you are using a court process to irritate or annoy another person. I'm happy you considered that. The question you asked was very good. In July last year, because I've been following this matter carefully, Ekwebandu and the Senate President came out and said, we have not been invited by the police. You are saying that the police want us, we are here. The police came out and denied officially that we never invited you. Under Section 17, subsection 2 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, an accused person must make a written statement. The proof of evidence that is in the public domain does not even have a statement made by either Saraki or Ekwebandu. None of them made a statement. No statement was taken, any of them. They railroaded them. Having felt irritated that they could not quickly get justice through the civil process, they decided to use their powers as the ruling party to railroad him. The doctrine of separation of powers, ably propounded by Baron de Montesquieu in 1748, makes it clear that the executive cannot browbeat the legislature. And the Supreme Court has said that in Ojukwu and government of Lagos State, that you cannot begin to take the laws into your hands because you have the instrumentality of the police, the military, the soldier. Then you think you can do anything. The real impunity is what is going on now. If you want to know, the real impunity is what is going on now. Decimation of people's rights, decimation of citizens' rights. You know, trial without a fair hearing, incarceration without trial, disobedience to court orders. Even when people are told to be released, you will not release. And you call that one rule of law?
Mr. Ozekhome.
There's no rule of law.
This is the first time law is ruling.
No,
This is ruling against the rich and powerful and corrupt.
No, this is
That is when there is this problem.
Impunity and crudity.
This is the first time the law is ruling in Nigeria.
This is crudity.
All right, gentlemen.
This is rule of the thumb. It's not rule of law. Crudity.
Law is ruling now.
No.
From what is happening in the studio, you'll understand why a lot of people in this country say that all our problems are caused by lawyers.
No, I don't think so. Rather, we're waiting to help resolve the centripetal and centrifugal forces. Because they are part and parcel of democracy. Democracy is for us to talk instead of fighting. Okay. And that's what we are doing.
Can we wind up?
It's better than carrying arms.
Can we wind up? Our closing statements, please, Mr. Ogunye.
Yeah, my closing statement is that, look, we need to make a distinction between what is political and what is criminal. In furtherance of
morality has no role to play in all
in
this.
furtherance
Okay,
of
all
your
right.
political objective, don't commit any crime. And if you commit a crime,
Face the
you make
music.
it possible for the machinery of the state to be used against you. It is beside the point that you then say, I'm being persecuted. There can be no armed robber that can say, you are persecuting me. I'm not the only armed robber in Lagos. Why are you arresting and detaining me? So we need to understand it. And that's why I use my words advisedly. I'm fascinated that people who could not be asked questions in the past, and I'm not talking about this one in particular, have been asked questions that in our lifetime, things that Chief Mike Ozekhome fought for years by, and some of us, and those who have died, you can verify me, are happening. And our people are being held to account in a country where before nobody could be held to account. That's progress. I say, when I see progress, I say it.
Acknowledge it. Okay.
Now, my closing
Mr.
remark
Ozekhome.
is that there's a difference between progress in the positive and progress in the negative.
No, that's not progress then if it's negative.
That's
is it?
Yeah, in fact, it becomes retrogression.
Exactly.
And I'm happy that he considered, and he's one of the young Turks also who was with us. He considered that I was one of the leading lights in the human rights and pro-democracy fight in this country. Struggle.
That was then.
Through successive military rule. Oh, now I advocate for rule of law.
That was then.
That I advocate for rule of law. But I am against this sheer hysteria, this crude brigandage in the name of either fighting corruption or taking on your perceived enemies or your perceived detractors. And as he considered,
I'm not considering it. This is the third time you say I'm considering.
something that ought to have been done. He said something that ought to have been done last year.
I'm angry with them that they didn't do it then.
Yes, they didn't do it then.
But better late than never.
Hold on. It is being done now. It is being done now when you are failing in the civil aspect. And then you now want to use the machinery of government, because you are in government, to oppress another arm of government. I'm against that because there's no rule of law and the doctrine of separation of power is not being allowed to work.
Thank
and
you.
There's too much intimidation.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Ozekhome. We have been chatting with two legal practitioners, GT Ogunye and Mike Ozekhome, SAN. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you very
and
much.
giving us the benefit of your book. Thank you very much. Sunrise will return in a moment with yet another interesting conversation.
Channel